Okay, let's dive into this. There's some pretty big news about Andrew and Tristan Tate. UK prosecutors have greenlit charges against them.
That's right. And we're talking rape and human trafficking charges
Yeah.
specifically. They were actually authorized last year, but it's all coming out now.
Right, and the source we're digging into today, this interview with journalist James Brewworth, who wrote Lost Boys, about the manosphere, he points out it's, what, 21 alleged defenses between them?
Yeah, 21. And the timing is interesting. These UK charges come after Bedfordshire police executed arrest warrants. But like you said, they're already dealing with a whole set of charges over in Romania.
Which they deny, yeah. And they're dual UK citizens, which adds another layer.
Definitely. Plus, you can't ignore their huge social media presence, that whole brand often labeled toxic masculinity.
Exactly. So our mission today, really, is to take Beworth's insights from this source you shared and just pull apart the key details, the dynamics he sees playing out right now.
Okay, so let's start with the legal side of things, because that's kind of the immediate blocker, according to the source. They're physically in Romania, dealing with the case there.
And Bainsworth is saying, essentially, that the Romanian process has to run its course first.
Pretty much, yeah. That case kicked off back in 2022. The journalist thinks a trial is likely this year, but, timelines are always a bit fuzzy.
So for the UK charges, what happens then? Does the source lay out the sequence?
It does. Basically, the thinking is only after everything wraps up in Romania, and who knows how long that'll take. It's already been a couple years.
Right.
Only then would they likely be extradited back to the UK to face those 21 charges. So the UK case is effectively on pause.
Okay, waiting on Romania. Wow.
Yeah.
And this legal maze isn't the only thing the source gets into, is it? There's this whole U.S. connection, the political side. They are dual citizens, after all.
Yeah, and this is where Beesworth shares some really eye-opening stuff. He reports that senior figures connected to the Trump administration apparently gave them some assistance.
Assistance, how? I remember the source mentioning they went to Florida back in February for about a month. Then they went back to Romania voluntarily.
Exactly. And the really specific detail Beesworth reports is that Trump's special envoy supposedly helped facilitate that trip.
Wow.
He even mentions a reported chat the envoy had with Russia's foreign minister at the Munich Security Conference, possibly linked to this. It suggests a level of political involvement that the source finds pretty notable.
That is quite something. But does Beworth think this means they'll just, get away with it all?
No, his take, at least as presented in the source, seems to be that even with that kind of reported help, avoiding consequences altogether is unlikely. Especially now you've got active cases in two countries, the UK and Romania.
And that connects to another point Beworth makes, right? About tensions within Republican circles. So some reported help from D.C., but then the source contrasts that with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis apparently not wanting them in Florida at all.
Yeah, it paints a picture, based on Beworth's reporting anyway, of not everyone being on the same page about the Tates within those political groups. It highlights kind of internal disagreement or tension.
Interesting. Okay, so shifting from those external pressures, the source also really digs into their public image, their persona, and how vital that is for them.
Oh, absolutely. The journalist really hammers this point. Their whole business model, their brand, it hinges on this bluster, this specific image they project.
How does Beworth describe it?
He uses terms like teleogenic charisma, basically meaning charisma projected through media. He calls them bombastic, pushing this hypermasculinity. The idea is they always appear never phased, never show weakness, never seem unmanly.
So putting on that show isn't just for show, it's fundamental to their operation.
That's exactly the journalist's point. But interestingly, he adds a little counterpoint. He says he's noticed sometimes, off camera, especially Tristan, can look quite gaunt and worried, which suggests maybe that tough exterior doesn't always match what's going on underneath, especially with all this pressure.
That's a telling observation.
Yeah.
Does the source suggest maybe they don't actually relish these court cases in Romania? I mean, maybe they like certain kinds of controversy for the brand, but maybe not this.
That seems to be Beworth's interpretation, yeah. That facing a formal trial is maybe a different kind of heat than the usual online drama they stir up. Although the source does also mention they seem genuinely convinced they'll be found innocent in Romania.
Right. Okay, so we have these political tensions, maybe some tension between their image and reality. Let's talk more about tension, because the source says it's not just political, it's also happening inside the manosphere itself.
Yes, Beworth points to quite a clear split there. You've got figures like the Tates on one side with this very ostentatious, almost sleazy lifestyle that's Beorth's word all about money, crypto.
And then on the other side, the source mentions more, like traditional conservatives, or maybe evangelical type. Jordan Peterson gets brought up as an example.
Exactly. And according to Beanworth, these more traditional figures are kind of repulsed by what they see as the sleaziness of the Tate's approach.
So it's a clash of values almost. Different ideas about masculinity or conservative.
That's how the journalist frames it, yeah. He suggests it's a divide that actually runs through that wider coalition associated with the Trump administration. You've got the traditional conservatives sort of rubbing up against this newer, flashier, Tate-style contingent.
It really highlights how complex that whole scene is, based on what Beanworth observed.
Definitely underscores the different, sometimes clashing viewpoints all existing under one sort of broad umbrella.
Okay, so let's try and pull this together as we wrap up this deep dive. We've looked at the legal situation complex, multi-country stuff. We've touched on the reported political angles and the tensions Beanworth uncovered there.
Both political tensions and tensions within the manosphere.
Right, and also this really interesting dynamic between their public image, which is so core to everything they do, and the sheer reality of facing very serious charges.
These are definitely some of the key threads coming out of the source material, the Beanworth interview.
So maybe the final thought for you listening, something pulled from this discussion. Given how completely essential that public persona, that image is to their whole identity and business, what does it actually mean for them day to day, trying to navigate these huge legal fights in different countries while also desperately trying to keep that image intact?
Right.
What does that balancing act really look like?